We're at only 2 weeks before we get to go see the movie, where our theme comes from. Prince Caspian comes out in just 2 weeks. We'll meet at the church a little bit before 11 o'clock, leave by 11:03, to try to be there in time for a 12:15 show. And so that should be good, and will help with some of these illustrations to see it visually as well. Now, we talked about last week, for those of you who weren't here, we talked about last week, and those of you who didn't see the sermon on YouTube because we forgot our camera, that last week we talked about the Feast of Trumpets. And part of the Feast of Trumpets and the Feast of Atonement was that the Feast of Trumpets started out with blowing of trumpets, not just for just a couple toots, not for a couple minutes, but for the whole day. For a whole day, the trumpets would continue to blast and blast and blast, calling the people for the festival, letting them know it is time. It is time. And in the movie of Prince Caspian, the Pevensies are called to Narnia by a trumpet blast. A trumpet blast that they didn't just follow, but they were pulled to. The trumpet blast symbolizes the voice of God. It is God speaking. And so here in Numbers today, as we continue our journey back to faith, there's a trumpet blast for Moses. And he needs a trumpet blast at this time. See, at this point, they had left Egypt. They had left their slavery behind, and they were in the wilderness. And they had already messed up. And they were going to be in the wilderness for a long time. And while they were in the wilderness, God provided for them manna for them to eat every day. He gave them what they needed. But the people complained. The people were frustrated. They said, we're sick and tired of manna. We want meat. We'd rather go back to Egypt than be stuck with this stupid manna any longer. Now, of course, they didn't know what they were asking for there. They didn't realize, they didn't think. It had only been a short time since they had been in Egypt and underneath slavery. And they say, I should go back. I want to go back. I'd rather have that and have the comforts. And oftentimes we can do the same thing. It was so much easier before I became a Christian. So much easier to be around other people. But we can't forget that that's slavery as well. As our journey back to faith, this is taking a leap back to before the journey began. We talked a few weeks ago about looking back at our origins. This is going back before the origins, for the reason, for the need for a Savior. Because we were a lost people. The people of Israel were a lost people. And as we follow them on their journey, so we go on our journey back to faith. See, the people were grumbling, and Moses said, I am sick and tired of you guys telling me you're sick and tired. I am one man, and as you see in this passage, you are 600,000 people that I have to deal with, that I have to put up with. It makes you say, God, how can you put up with 6 billion people on this planet? So Moses was saying, help me, Lord. Help me, Lord. Because he couldn't do it on his own. I know that I can't do it on my own. I remember even just having 35 kids showing up for youth group, and Jessica and myself being the adults, and how challenging that was. Can't imagine 600,000 rabble-rousing Israelites to have to deal with. So God spoke to Moses. The Lord said to Moses, bring me 70 of Israel's elders who are known to you as leaders and officials among the people. Have them come to the tent of meeting, and they may stand there with you. Now notice this. This isn't asking Moses, identify people who have potential. He's not saying, just pull 70 random people, say you, and you. Identify people who are already working. Who are already doing the job. Who are already working with their neighbors. Who are already identified as leaders. This is kind of what the idea is for going through ordination process and becoming ordained to the priesthood. First, you should already be in ministry. See, sometimes we get it backwards, that we need to be ordained and then go into ministry. No, we have to first go into ministry. And then, for those who God has called, be ordained. And for those who God has called to help. And for those who are just to do the everyday, to continue to do the everyday and do it well. To do it very well. They were already doing the work. And so God gave this promise, I will come down and speak with you there, and I will take on the Spirit that is on you and put the Spirit on them. They will help you carry the burden of the people so that you will not have to carry it alone. It would have been a lot of work for Moses to try to deal with that many people. So we look in the New Testament, and we just talked about this as well, where the apostles, there were 12 of them, but still they couldn't deal with everything. So they had deacons that they appointed. Because there's always a need. There's always a need that's out there that more people can help. And again, this was people who are already doing the work. And our challenge is, as we go back on our journey back to faith, to be in the work. To not necessarily wait to be asked, but to do the work, and then once you're seen doing the work, you may be asked to do more. See, we come back to the parable of the talents.